We do think about the end of the world from time to time, and we've been thinking about it a lot, like last year, because of the 2012 and the end of the world and the Mayan calendar, and we talked about all of that. But all of a sudden, the TV show started spoofing it, and I thought, okay, then we've got to be clear that even with all that spoofing stuff, there is something going on. And I thought, well, how is the world going to end? And we know, right? There's asteroids. Asteroids or meteorites, I don't know the difference, and I hope Austin Gulliver is here, I guess, but Austin Gulliver is the astronomer at BU, brilliant man, and he would tell me that any 7-year-old knows the difference between asteroids and meteorites, or meteors, but I don't. But one of them is going to hit the Earth, and that's going to destroy us, right? Unless Bruce Willis goes and plants a bomb in the middle of it, and that'll break it in half and it'll miss the Earth, and then you'll be okay. So there's that. So there's asteroids. The other way the Earth could end is nuclear. Now I got to say nuclear because it was George Bush that said nuclear, and for a while I thought they were different. I thought nuclear and nuclear must be different, but they're not. He just said it wrong. It's all nuclear. Nuclear war could end us, right? Because Russia's getting mad and they're not going to buy our pork, and that's actually quite serious. But they have nuclear weapons, right? And so does the United States. But we don't let anybody else have them because we want them in the hands of competent people. Yeah. So we could end up dying that way. And that's one of the big possibilities. What's another one? Disease. And disease is a big one, and we're fairly used to that. The zombie movies have kind of gone by the wayside this year, but they'll come back again. Now they're on TV shows, The Walking Dead and stuff. But we're pretty sure that we could die by cataclysmic disease. As a matter of fact, I went over to Walmart to buy my hazmat suit the other day, and they didn't have any left. So I have to wait until they come on, until there's a price slash, and I can buy a hazmat suit. But that's what we have, right? We have people wearing hazmat suits going around the world protecting the world. And actually, when I was at the university still, I would go to meetings on the next pandemic that would be coming. Because, I don't know, about every 50 years or so, there's a pandemic that comes, right? Late 1800s, there was a pandemic. And then 1918 was influenza, the Spanish flu. I don't know why they called it the Spanish flu. I don't think the Spaniards are very happy about that, you know. You know, it's like Dutch elm disease. I'm Dutch, and I'm thinking, what did the Dutch have to do with this elm disease? You know, why do they name it after us? The Van Beek syndrome is what they're going to call it next. But this whole idea of a pandemic is quite serious to us, isn't it? So they had the Spanish flu, and then in the 1950s, what did they have in the 1950s? It was polio was the big thing in the 1950s, but our dimes all marched along, and they saved us from polio. And then the last thing, I guess, was SARS, right? And what's right now? Ebola in Africa. And what's the thing about Ebola? What's saving us from Ebola? That it is not transferred by air. I forgot what you call that. I'm going to say transferred by air, right? It's not an airborne disease. You have to get it by touch, and that's the thing that's holding it back. If it was an airborne disease, like the avian flu is obviously an airborne disease because it's avian flu. That means bird flu, and that could come our way. But there's these things are happening, and these are really serious things, aren't they? They could destroy. Now they won't destroy the earth. They could destroy humanity. Now when I was in school. Not my big degrees, but my little degrees, or high school actually, you know, so really little. When I was in high school, there were 5.5 billion people on the earth. 5.5. We thought that was a lot. And there was a lot of stuff going on about population and overpopulation. And I would have to sit in class and watch all these movies about how the earth was going to be destroyed. I guess that's what formed me into the man I am today. And the big one, well, they did cars, and there's going to be too many cars, and the exhaust is going to kill us, and then there was going to be other stuff. But what they did in this one movie that was kind of neat is they said, insects are going to take over the world. And you didn't think about that, did you? But what they said actually made sense, and that was the worst of it, is they said, well, people dominate the world. Like, that's how we make the world suit us, right? If the world's hot, we have air conditioning, which is very nice, by the way. Thank you, Pastor. And that's the way we do the world, is we dominate. They say insects adapt to the world. People dominate, insects adapt. And so everything that we do to get rid of insects, just like bacteria, they adapt, right? And part of that is a human generation is about, what, 45 years? No, it's not, about 35 years. 40 years? 25 years. Let's say 25 years. 25 years, I like that number. That's how you do it, eh? That's how scientists do it. You throw out a bunch of numbers, and then you grab one that looks about right, and that's the one you stay with. Unless the company that you're doing your science for disagrees, and then you change it to whatever they want. At least that's what I've heard from scientists. And they said, what was I talking about? Huh? Insects are going to take over the world. Not the big insects, just little insects. And here's the thing about insects, is their lifespan is anywhere from a day to a month or something like that. Their generation is anywhere from a few days to hours. And they usually have thousands of children. So what happens is you kill off insects, but they adapt to whatever you're doing, right? And there's more and more insects all the time. As a matter of fact, there are people right now saying that what we need to do is start eating insects. Because if we can eat them all, then they can't destroy us. That's part of it. There was even a guy on TV, and he said, we need to eat insects. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's nice. He said, well, a third of the world right now eats insects. Okay. He says, as a matter of fact, you're eating insects. You eat shrimp, and shrimp are just insects in the ocean. Look at all the little legs they have. They're just insects. So I think that was the last time I ate shrimp. Because I thought, no. And crickets are being sold in restaurants in Winnipeg right as we speak. And I was looking at my yard the other day, and we could make some big money on crickets, because we have crickets like you would not believe coming into our house singing their song, rubbing their legs together, doing what they do. And I thought, as long as we could keep the kids from watching Pinocchio or Mulan, we could eat crickets. That would be all right. But they might take over the world. But what I think, global warming. I forgot to mention global warming. Of course. Who did not think of global warming when I said this? Didn't you say, Larry? Talk about global warming. Global warming means that the globe is warming. Yeah? It's getting warmer. And we're seeing it in Manitoba because we're getting a lot more rain in June. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, well, you know that most of southern Manitoba was a lake at one time. I'm going to say 10,000 because there's probably nobody here that knows any different. 10,000 years ago, most of southern Manitoba was a lake called Lake Agassiz. Yeah? You remember that? Or you don't remember that, but you've heard of that. Yeah? And I think it's going to become a lake again. And I'm up on a bit of a hill. So my property could be just like BC property in another 500 years. It could be worth millions of dollars. I mean, that would be just lovely. But global warming is the atmosphere, too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And when I was at the university, not BU, when I was at U of S, there were scientists there that did not actually believe in global warming. Of course, what they told me is, Larry, if you don't believe in global warming, if you don't support it, you don't get any research money. So you pretty much have to go with the global warming thing. But I don't know if humans are causing it. I don't know if it's the cows' flatulence that's causing global warming, which is what they say, or it's the oil fields or anything. Actually, I think, because the politicians don't support any anti-global warming scientists. But you would think that Harper would support that, because that would fit right into his agenda, And Fort McMurray, they would like that. That would suit them just fine. Just a thought. Just an odd thought. Not saying that I would vote for Trudeau, much as I like him. I like him. He's young. He's kind of French, I like him. He's going to legalize marijuana. That'll really help. Then the guys in the oil field at least say, well, we're allowed, So there is that. But I don't know about global warming. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about global warming. It might be warming up. Maybe Al Gore's right, but we'll find out as time goes on. I think what's going to kill the earth is overpopulation. Remember I said 5.5 billion people when I was in high school? There are 7.5 billion people on the earth today. 7.5. There were 22.5 million people in Canada when I was in high school. There are almost 35 million people in Canada today, right? I watched a show on TV where they were unloading ships. Like we're talking maybe 75 to 300-foot ships, boats, something like that. And they were unloading fish off these things for Asian markets. And I looked at these things being unloaded, and they said they unload them every day. And I thought, there is no way we survive this. There is no way the oceans can survive the kind of fishing and I was going to say raping of the oceans, but the kind of fishing that's going on today. I think about 1995, and you guys, we got people here from Newfoundland, you can help me with this. In 1995, they stopped the cod fishery in Newfoundland, right? About 1995. What are we now, 2014? It hasn't started back up. It hasn't, has it? It has not started back up. They still don't have enough cod. You know when Cabot came through about 200 years ago? He came through in his ships. I was going to say he wrote back to the Queen of England, but that's wrong, because Cabot was Portuguese, wasn't he? Nobody knows? So Cabot was Portuguese. and he wrote back to whoever, whoever was in Portugal at the time, and he said, we cannot even make our way through these oceans. We can't even make our way through the water. There are so many cod in the water that they slow down the progress of our ships. And I know that because I saw that on TV on one of those Canadian vignettes. So I know that that's true. And he said, we have enough fish for eternity. And in 1995, they closed down the cod fisheries. And people are still fishing like that all around the world. And I know that because when I go into the market, I can still buy sole for $10 for a great big bag. And I can buy shrimp. I can get a bag of shrimp, for my daughter, because I don't eat them now. But I can buy a bag of shrimp like this. They come on sale at Safeway, which is now Sobeys, unfortunately. No Sobeys, guys, eh? And I used to be able to get them at Safeway for about $7.99 a bag when they came on sale. And that should not be. I can buy cod. I can buy a bag of cod for $10. Where are they getting the cod? They're going to steal it from the rest of the oceans, right? Until the oceans are dead. In 1975, Jacques Cousteau on the Calypso, Calypso, he said that if we destroy the top layer of the ocean, which is what we're doing, we will destroy the atmosphere of the earth. And also the fresh water, which comes off, ocean effect rain. He said, we will destroy the earth. And we are doing that. And that's with 7.5 billion people in the world right now. They say by the year 2050, there will be 14 billion people on the earth. You almost double the population of the earth by the year 2050. Twice as many people come into this church. That'll work well for Gary. But probably 4 times as many people living in Canada, because the other countries are full, man. They're full. They've got to push them off and send them to Canada because there's no more room. How in the world are we going to support that? Well, we're not going to. We're dead. That's not a problem. All of us will be dead. That's the one thing we know for sure. But there's no way we can support it, right? And everything we do, now this is the oddity. Everything we do adds to the problem. Nothing that we do helps the problem. Well, we might only have one child, which was my contribution to the problem. But everything else hurts us. If we support people overseas, if we do humanitarian aid, what we do is we save people. And if we save people, we increase the population of the world. Well, that's an oddity. So if you want to save the earth, what do? Well, if you want to save the earth, what you do is you get back to 4 billion people, right? And there's 2 things that won't allow you to do that. One is capitalism, because capitalism needs an ever-increasing population to survive. A declining population destroys capitalism, except 2 or 3 people that figure that out. But the rest of us won't make it, right? And the other thing is God won't allow us to do this. Oh, so there is God in this picture. Oh yeah, I thought I should mention him. Or her. Her, if any of my United Church friends are here. I have a buddy of mine, he's United Church. And every time he says, well, let's ask her what she thinks. And I'm like, sure, sure, we could do that. Because we're educated enough to know that God is a spirit, and God is neither a man nor a woman. And the reason we use masculine terms of God is because that the authors of Scripture were writing to a patriarchal society. Had they been writing to the Mohawks, they may have used feminine terms for God, right? God is a spirit. There, I hope that made you all feel better and not worse. Unless you've been fighting that for years, and then remember, I'm just the crazy guy who comes in the middle of summer. So I think overpopulation will kill us, but I don't think God will allow that. I don't think God will allow us to do anything to stop that, because everything we do to stop that is terrible. Unless we can train people to only have one child, then maybe we could do something. But there's nothing else we can do, aside from war and, genocide and things like that. And you can't do that. And I thought, well, what does God want? What does God want? Because that's what a theologian does, right? That's what we do. We think, what does God want? Have I talked too long already? Okay. And I think, oh, God, what do you want from this thing? And then you read the scriptures and they say things like, go forth and multiply and fill the earth. Not replenish the earth, because that brings up, replenish suggests something altogether creepy. So let's just say, go and fill the earth, right? Go and fill the earth. Fill the earth. And I remember in about 1980, I heard Josh McDowell speak. And he said, the earth's been replenished, people. We don't need more people. The earth's been replenished. But I don't know if that's what God wants. Because our job is to help people. Our job is to stop disease. Our job is to stop war, if that's at all possible. Our job is to continue doing longevity studies, right? Back in the at the turn of the century, or in the 1800s, people would have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 children, and 7 of them would die before they were 5 years old. Well, that doesn't happen to us anymore. We seem to have less children in this country, but the children don't die because the stuff that God has given us the intelligence to do is working. But everything we do is going to increase the population of this earth to this 14 billion mark, right? And I don't believe the earth can sustain it. I just don't. So I have to think that God has something different in his mind when he says, fill the earth. Help everybody. Help it to keep growing. So I think that the people that have 5 or 6 or 7 children aren't harmful, right? I don't think that they've done it wrong if they followed what the Pope says and they've just had children naturally. I think that used to bother me a little bit, but it doesn't, because how can that bother me? It's not my place to say anything about that, because I'm not the one that's supposed to control the population of this world. And if you decide to have one child, or you can only have one child, then isn't that not fine as well? Because God has a different purpose. Turn with me to Peter. Oh, I'm in Isaiah, because Peter uses Isaiah. But first I'm going to go to Peter. Peter chapter 3. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about the flood that we're not going to talk about, because I don't really want to talk about local versus universal flood. Well, I'd like to, but 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10 says this: the day of the Lord will come like a thief. The heavens will disappear with a roar, the elements destroyed by fire, and the earth and everything in it will be laid bare. Okay? The earth will be destroyed by fire. And I remember my parents and some of the older preachers talking about this and tying it into the rapture and the 7-year tribulation and all that. But we won't talk about that, but what they got very clearly was that the earth will be destroyed by fire. He picks this up from Isaiah 34. And I lost that place. So if you can stand there that long, I will go back to it. Is Isaiah before Jeremiah? Yep. Isaiah, you need the kids that have been in that Vacation Bible School, they can tell you where everything is in the Bible. My daughter, since she was 5, could find stuff in Scripture faster than me. Isaiah 34:4 says, all the stars of the heavens will be dissolved, the skies rolled up like a scroll, and the starry host will fall like withered leaves of a vine, like shriveled figs on a fig tree. My sword has drunk its fill of the heavens. Okay? All of this will be destroyed, Isaiah says. Another place says he'll roll the earth up and toss it out like old rags. Matthew 24, Luke 23, Mark 13, all say the heavens and the earth will pass away. And Peter says the elements will be dissolved by heat. The stoicheia, the ABCs, the elements, I always want to say earth, wind, and fire, but that's just an old group. It's, what is it? Earth, wind, no, not wind, that's it, that's the problem. Earth, air, fire, and water will all be destroyed. God will destroy everything. He will destroy everything. So what I'm thinking, and I don't know, this is summertime. You don't actually have to even take anything from this. But what I'm thinking is we still have to do our jobs. We still have to do humanitarian things. We still have to figure out diseases. We still have to figure out if wide-spectrum drugs aren't going to work. We'll do blood tests on every person that comes in and use tighter drug antibiotics that'll affect just the disease that the person has. We still have to do all of that kind of stuff that science is doing, right? They're still going to work on cancer cures. They're still going to work on, we have a way to boost the antibodies of the body's own system so that it can recognize cancer, because cancer is the great deceiver in the body. And it'll recognize the cancer and then destroy the cancer, hopefully without destroying the person first. And they're working on that right now. I listen to CBC, that's how I know all this stuff. And they're working on that right now. But of course, being scientists, they're saying, who knows? Who knows if this is going to work or not? It's too early. And who knows if it'll work for everybody? But we work on all this stuff because we know that really what God's going to do is he's got some kind of a plan for humanity. What is that plan that he has for humanity? He just kind of wants, Peter said, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. And he wishes that none would perish, and therefore he waits. So it has something to do with people coming to Jesus. You know, in the book of Revelation, there's a place where they cry out to God and they say, oh God, how long before you avenge our deaths? And he says, just a little while longer, until the number that I wish to be saved is filled, and then I will avenge you. Wow, eh? How many more Christians are going to die? Just hold on, there's a few more. And then my plan will be fulfilled, and then I'll work it out. This is what Peter finishes by saying. He finishes by saying this: since everything will be destroyed in this way, what kind of people ought you to be? You ought to live holy and godly lives, as you look forward to the day of God and speed its coming. That day will bring about the destruction of the heavens by fire, and the elements will melt with heat. But in keeping with his promise, we are looking forward to a new heaven and a new earth in the home of righteousness. People, we have to do everything we can. We have to do everything God has called us to do to preserve this earth, to be the scientists that he called us to be the mechanics that he called us to do those things. But in all of it, we have to remember that there's a limited time for this earth as we know it. And God is going to give us all a brand new earth and a brand new heavens. And our purpose in the midst of watching everything fall apart is to live holy and godly lives. Isn't that the oddest thing? You think he'd say, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we all may die. And he doesn't. He says, live godly and holy lives. And if you read Matthew, he would say, and tell everybody about Jesus.